If our kids' back to school anxiety sounded like this: "Hey mom, guess what? I'm feeling a little worried about school starting next week. Could you please help me process my feelings?" Dreamy. But if your kid is like most kids, they probably won't be able to talk about their inner life so accurately or even at all. Their anxiety probably shows up dressed in a bit of a disguise, or maybe many disguises. They might say, "I hate school," or "You can't make me go," or "My teacher's going to be terrible," or "I need to know exactly what to wear and it needs to be perfect," right? Sometimes anxiety doesn't look very frightened or raw or vulnerable at all. Sometimes it looks like it's angry, controlling, defiant, distracted, clingy, or completely overwhelmed. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Self-Led Parenting Live. I'm Jaclyn Long, licensed marriage and family therapist and founder of Mindful Child and Family Therapy, supporting parents all across California. And this is a space where we slow parenting moments down. And I want you to know that all parts of you are welcome here. All feelings are welcome here too. Not just your kids' feelings, but your feelings as well. And that's important to me. And today we're talking about the fact that back to school anxiety often doesn't look like anxiety. It usually looks like many other things instead. So it's kind of hard for us parents to identify it. And our kids don't usually even know what's happening inside, so they can't usually inform us about it. I remember when I was about 7 years old, I had a swim meet, and when I woke up, I felt so sick to my stomach. I told my mom I had a tummy ache and that I thought I was sick and that I wasn't going to be able to go to the swim meet. She helped me understand that I could be sick, but I could also be nervous about my swim meet. It didn't make any sense to me at the time. I was very confused by that. It's like, I have a stomach ache, I'm sick. But she said it might help to put a little food in my tummy, and that did help. And over time, that helped me connect what was happening in my body to what was happening in my mind and heart. I really didn't think she was right at the time. But over time, I began to realize that connection. Swim meet, wake up, tummy ache, eat some food, feel a little better. And when that happened over and over again, I realized she was right. And that anxiety was just something I needed to be able to feel in my body, work with, give it a little food, move my body as soon as I would jump in the water for that warm-up time. It helped a lot. And just move with the anxiety instead of fight against it or not go to the swim meet so I didn't feel it at all. I like to say, instead of N-O anxiety, I got to K-N-O-W. I got to know my anxiety. But the point I'm trying to make here is that I didn't even know I was having any anxiety at all. I just thought I was sick. And so even if kids did know that they had anxiety, let's say that they did know, they might not even have the words to communicate with us about it. They might not even feel safe enough, or maybe they feel ashamed. So if we can't talk about our anxiety, if we can't express our anxiety, because as Fred Rogers says, anything mentionable is manageable. But if we can't talk about it, if we can't mention it, then it's going to build up inside. And let's just assume, for the sake of today and what we're talking about today, that there is a whole bunch of back to school anxiety building up inside of your kids. If they can't talk about it, they show us. And they might show us through their tummy aches, like I was showing my mom, but more often, they're going to show us through their off-track behavior. What does that mean? So for instance, anxiety might come out through angry behavior. Imagine that school starts next week and you ask your child to try on their new shoes, the beautiful new shoes that you bought them, and suddenly they're furious. The shoes are wrong, the socks feel terrible. How could you make them wear these shoes that they really wanted? They hate their backpack, it's the wrong color. They hate going to that school. And if you make them go, it means you're really mean. And you find yourself thinking, what the heck is happening? We were having a really good day, and this reaction makes no sense at all. But I wonder, what if the reaction does make sense? Really good sense, somewhere beneath the surface. The shoes might be a small pretext that helps them show you just how uncomfortable they're feeling inside. And the shoes could also have another meaning. The shoes might be carrying your child toward a classroom where they don't know where they're going to sit, toward a playground where friendships might feel uncertain, toward separation away from you, toward academic pressure, toward noise, social chaos, a new teacher, or maybe a memory of something painful that happened last year. Maybe words that other kids said, or a look that make them feel really bad inside. You know, those disapproving looks from other kids really impact us as social mammals. Your child might not consciously know all of this is rising up inside of them as they put on their new shoes. A part of them just might be simply saying, danger, danger, something really scary is coming. And that might touch a very raw, tender, and very vulnerable part of them. And then a whole army of protectors might rush in to try their very best to protect that inner, vulnerable, raw, very scared part of them. So, in a way, that vulnerable, scared part may arrive out in the relational field with you wearing lots of outer disguises, what I'd like to refer to as bodyguards. So as parents, we don't always get to see that raw, vulnerable, tender one. We don't always get to see the put together one that can talk accurately about that raw, vulnerable, tender one. We usually see these protective ones trying their very best to help that vulnerable one inside the very best way they know how. So in this case, anxiety comes dressed up in anger as the bodyguard. When their body perceives danger, fight energy might come forward. Their voice got loud, their body got tight, and they argue about everything. They may seem like they're ready for battle, when what lives underneath could be fear, uncertainty, a feeling of helplessness, powerlessness, desperation for some relief. And there's other possible disguises too. For another child, anxiety might come up in an outer defiance as the protective bodyguard. It might sound like, I'm not going. I'm not doing that. You can't make me. And you may see them as being really disrespectful. But perhaps a part of them is just trying to find some sort of order and control in what feels like total chaos to them inside. Maybe it's saying something like, well, maybe I can't stop school from arriving, but I can stop this conversation, and I can refuse to pack the backpack, and I can refuse to eat the veggies. And I'm going to focus on trying to control one small thing. And parents, my dear friends, that can be really hard for us. And we'll focus next week on what this brings up inside of us and how we might respond, because their need for control does not mean that we must abandon every expectation or allow every hurtful behavior. Quite the opposite. It really does help our kids so much if we can courageously and confidently hold loving limits for them. Research shows that accommodating anxiety on one hand and getting mad at anxiety on the other hand does not help our kids very much. Usually both of these extremes intensifies their anxiety. And we'll look at this compassionately next week because this is very common, understandable parts of us. These are both parts of us as parents that are very common and understandable. But real quick, you might be asking, what do we do? So just real quick, what do? We can do a parenting U-turn. When they're acting like that out there, we can bring our attention back to ourselves in here. We do a U-turn so we can return to our own center and be with any of the ones inside of us that are getting activated. So we can be with our own internal system in a warm, grounded, and centered way, a connected way, even just for a micro moment. And this internal connection helps us bring our warm, calm, and grounded energy back out into the relational field to connect with our child from there. The inner connection with ourselves supports the outer connection with our kids. This inner connection helps us to hold a clear and kind limit without making the child wrong for having such a big response to the little thing not going their way. And that's huge. We'll explore this from the parenting side of things more next week in Self-Led Parenting Live 25. But today, we're focused on what this looks like in our kids. And so, yes, anxiety might show up disguised as anger, with the angry bodyguard in foreground, or as trying to control things, or as defiance. How else might anxiety show up? Anxiety can show up as clinginess. A child who slept well all summer suddenly needs another hug at bedtime, another question answered, another book, another song, maybe another drink. Their body is clearly tired, but their mind might be rehearsing tomorrow. Who will be in my class? What if I get lost? What if no one sits with me? What if I miss being at home? Some kids don't speak these questions out loud. So all you know is that they drag out bedtime, which understandably pushes your limits. It's really frustrating. You're tired. You know they need sleep. You need sleep. This will bring up a lot inside of us as parents. So anxiety might show up as clinginess or stalling at bedtime or not wanting you to leave the room or wanting to hang onto your pant leg while you cook dinner. All of that is possible. So how else might anxiety show up? For some kids, anxiety might look like distraction or a lack of focus. You give one simple direction and they wander away. They forget what they're doing, or they don't even seem to hear you in the first place at all. Frustrating, right? But maybe part of their attention may be being pulled inward, trying to protect them by thinking about things and reviewing images and looking at the past memories or coming up with possible problems to focus on that they can try to solve ahead of time because their mind is trying really hard to get ahead of this. That's a bodyguard. That's your child trying to figure out how to protect themselves the best way they know how, and it might just be drawing their attention away from you. They're preoccupied. So it might look like lack of focus and distraction. So what else might anxiety look like? Sometimes anxiety looks like avoidance. This is when the conversation gets changed very quickly. The child who once wanted new school supplies now refuses to even enter the store. Like me, maybe a stomach ache appears when it's time to leave, and thinking that the child is really sick, you might say, yeah, it's okay to stay home from school. So here's the thing. Avoidance can bring temporary relief to a worried mind and heart, but it does not last long. For one brief moment, the body feels better. And here's the thing. That momentary relief can make the urge to avoid the thing even stronger the next time anxiety appears. That's why accommodating the anxiety is not a helpful strategy for the long term, even though it seems to help in the moment. So how else might anxiety come up? Anxiety may also come up all dressed up in negativity, like this. This year is going to be awful. My teacher's not going to like me. I'm going to fail. Nobody will talk to me. And when our kids say things like this, a caretaker or fixer part of us might want to respond quickly. Oh, but that's not true. You're going to be fine. You always make friends. Teachers always love you. We want to pull our child out of the dark forecast. Of course we do. But reassurance sometimes moves past the feeling that actually needs our company, our empathy, our attunement. So what if we slow down first and got curious and playful? Yeah, let's have a school's gonna be awful party. And let's think of all of the things that are gonna be really terrible about going to school. Let's set a timer and do that for 2 minutes. You can even have a limit to this school's gonna be awful party. So what else does anxiety look like? For some kids, anxiety becomes an intense need to plan, to schedule, to plan the route, to plan the interaction with the teacher, to plan the lunch, to plan the pickup and plan a backup pickup plan. And planning can be genuinely supportive. And it certainly is rewarded in our production-oriented culture. And predictability really does help. Many planning parts feel safer. But sometimes the planning grows and grows into a desperate attempt to remove every bit of uncertainty. And the reason that's not helpful is because life is full of uncertainty. Life can't offer guarantees. And it's important for us as parents to help our kids cope with uncertainty so they can be resilient in the face of it. We can help with what can be known while gently accompanying our child through what can't be known. We can be a hope merchant for them. We can say, I know it's hard not to know what it's going to be like, sweetie, and I know you're going to find a way through it. Or, I know it's hard, and I know you can do hard things. So what else might anxiety look like? If they're all kind of jumbled up together, there are reactions that seem to come out of nowhere. Your child holds everything together until you ask an innocent question or set a simple limit, and suddenly they're sobbing, screaming, or throwing their backpack across the room. The question or the small limit may have been the final drop that causes the emotional bladder to finally begin to release. Of course, I'm not suggesting that these behaviors alone proves that a child is experiencing anxiety. I'm actually tackling this topic today by starting with the assumption that your kid does have back to school anxiety. So we can consider together how that anxiety might be coming out kind of sideways as the protective bodyguards step into the foreground, trying to protect the scared part the best way they know how. So the anxiety might be in there, but what you're interacting with as the parent are the protective ones, trying to protect the raw, vulnerable part of your child. But of course, anger can be anger that isn't about anxiety. It could be a sign of an unmet need. Or difficulty focusing can have many different causes. Sleep changes, even stomach aches, avoidance, and emotional explosions can mean many, many different things. So the invitation I'm offering today is for you to simply become curious. We're allowing ourselves to ask, could anxiety be part of what I'm seeing as my kid goes back to school? And let's slow this moment down together. I'd like to invite you to take a moment to pause and go inside and bring into foreground one behavior around your child that's been difficult for you lately. Just one. Perhaps the refusal, the anger, the repeated questions or need for reassurance, the bedtime struggle, or the insistence that everything happen in exactly the right way. Just bring up one moment with your child that's been hard for you. And notice what happens inside of you when you picture that behavior. You don't have to fix what you notice. Just see if you can offer whatever's there a little warmth. And perhaps place a hand somewhere that feels grounding for you. And notice what that's like. Yeah. just notice what comes up for you as I offer you these following queries. What if the off-track behavior is the outer signal of something much larger happening inside? What might your child be trying to protect? What might feel uncertain? What might be difficult for them to put into words? Just stay in a place of openness, wonder, and curiosity with this, and just see what arises within you. Don't go searching for answers, just let them come. And see if you can welcome whatever comes. And when you're ready, gently bring your attention from the inside back into the outside. And it's okay if you're not sure what's unfolding inside your child in response to my queries. Your curiosity does not need a clear answer. And I'm also going to gently invite you right now to just notice what it might be like to set a calm, caring, confident limit when your child is off track or angry or trying to control everything. Compassion and confidence can live in the same moment. A limit doesn't have to be harsh or loud or disapproving to be effective. A limit doesn't have to communicate, I'm disappointed in you, or your feelings are way too much. It can communicate, I care about you. Your feelings belong here, and I'm going to keep us both safe as you let your feelings out. It's okay to have feelings. I'm going to hold the limit with the behavior. I'll hold the limit and still hold my good feelings for you at the same time. That's powerful. And for many of us, that's new. I know it was for me. So for many of us, that way of being with the child as we hold a limit with them is healing. Then later, when the emotional storm is past, we might offer a little more connection, maybe through special time. I have an article on our website. If you look up mcaft.com, special time, you'll find a whole article about that. Or maybe through a walk or a cuddle, a game that brings laughter, a quiet moment while packing lunch together, some silent way of saying, I'm here, we're in this together, and whatever it is you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone. I also want to say that if anxiety is persistent, causes significant distress, or begins interfering with sleep, school attendance, friendships, sports, or the rhythms of daily life, it might be time to seek some additional support, maybe from your child's pediatrician or a qualified mental health professional. Reaching for help is just one more way of standing beside your child, of being an ally. Okay, so some key takeaways here. As school approaches, here are a few things to remember. First, anxiety doesn't always look or sound afraid. It might look angry, defiant, distracted, very negative, avoidant, controlling, sleepless, or suddenly overwhelmed. Second, off-track behavior is information, but it's important not to jump to conclusions or to diagnose your kids with mental health disorders. So stay curious, look for patterns, and hold your conclusions gently. Third, you can offer emotional safety while calmly holding a limit. And finally, your child needs to know that you can be with their distress in the face of uncertainty. They need to know they don't have to face the distress of uncertainty alone. Before we close, I'd like to read a short letter from the perspective of a child. Dear Mom or Dad, and all the grown-ups who love me, I may not know how to tell you that going back to school feels kind of big and scary inside of me. I argue about my clothes when I'm really wondering if I'll feel like I belong. I ask you the same question 10 times because the answer disappears when my worry gets loud. I become angry and lash out when I'm actually feeling very small and powerless and afraid inside. And I try to control lots of small things because so much feels beyond my control. Please don't assume that every difficult thing I do is coming from anxiety. Please don't diagnose me with anxiety, but please do stay curious about me. Listen when I can talk. Stay nearby when I can't. Hold the limits I need without making me feel bad for having big feelings that I don't know how to control. I don't need you to promise that nothing hard will happen. I need to feel that if something hard does happen, that I won't have to face it alone. Thank you for loving me and for staying with me even when my fears get big and my behavior goes off track. I love you for that. I really do. Love, your child. Let's take a moment to let that letter land. As we enter this back to school season, I hope we can look a little more gently at the off-track behaviors in our kids, because there will be many, and wondering what might be asking to be seen beneath it can be helpful. Sometimes anxiety wears lots of different disguises, and sometimes our loving curiosity helps a child begin to process their anxiety so they can ultimately offload the heavy weight of worry that they've been carrying, often for a long time. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for doing some of the most important work in the world, raising kids and being with the many parts of them that are trying to protect their vulnerable places of fear or other feelings deep inside. And I'll see you next time.